Good morning, everyone. Good to see each of you. We have a special treat for everyone, and we're excited and really looking forward to having Brother Cameron Meeks speak to us today. He is here from Montgomery. He's here as a part of his work with Lads to Leaders, and that's something that we have engaged in the past, and something that we're wanting to resume and get back into what we're doing and the work that's going on here. So much value for our young people and our children to have them grow up and to be learning those things that will be helpful and practical for them as they grow into serving in the Lord's church. Cameron Meeks started working with Lads to Leaders at an official capacity on August 1st of this year, but has been working with Lads since 2006. He's been a part of the Lads family since then. He grew up in Lads, and so he is a firsthand representative or example of what can be produced by implementing these things. Before working with Lads, he served as the youth minister for the Concord Church of Christ in Concord, North Carolina. He received his BA in Bible from Freed-Hardeman University in 2018 and is currently pursuing an MDiv from Heritage Christian University. Fantastic selection, by the way. I'm also enrolled at Heritage Christian University, so that's good. Very good. He's been married to Jenna Meeks for 5 years and has 2 children, Walker, who's 3 years old, and Ridge, who is now 6 months old. And so he's got a young family, and we want to especially be praying for them while he's away and while they're working. And so we won't take any more of his time. He has a presentation for us. He's going to talk about Lads and how it might be best implemented here. He has some books here up front. And if you're interested in seeing those, then he can make that available to you. And he'll also be opening things up for questions if you have any questions as well. So, Brother Cameron, come speak.
All righty. Can everybody hear me? Microphone's working?
Yes.
Good deal. So, for y'all who are acquainted with the great state of Florida, I grew up not an hour and a half away from here in Putnam County. Palatka is my hometown. When I say Palatka in most audiences, they say, where? And I go, it's near St. Augustine. And they go, where? And I say, well, it's kind of near Jacksonville. I'm like, oh, okay. So anyways, I grew up not too far from you guys. And it is a privilege, it is a blessing to be here this morning to speak about Lads to Leaders, honestly, the program that had a huge role in building the man that I am today. I wouldn't have chosen the path of ministry without Lads to Leaders. We like to say at the office that Lads to Leaders is for everyone, even though the name might suggest it's for youth. Really, this program is meant for the entire congregation, and that will show up in some slides later on. I'd like to show you some faces that we are friends with at Lads to Leaders. Here on the far left is the president of Freed-Hardeman University, David Shannon. Gospel Advocate Chief Editor is right beside him, Greg Tidwell. And that's the Dean of the Bible Department at Freed-Hardeman, Justin Rogers. And there on the far right is our Executive Director, Roy Johnson of Lads to Leaders. He was honored not too long ago with an honorary doctorate from Freed-Hardeman to recognize all the hard work he does for the brotherhood. I'm trying to advance the slide here. There we go. I'm going to skip this one. Where's the best way to... What do I point? Do I point to the screen? Okay, that'll work. I'm afraid I'm clicking too fast, and it's just like rapid fire going through the presentation. But okay, bear with me. Technical difficulties, but we're getting there. My first slide here. When a congregation is considering Lads to Leaders for the first time, they might see a lack of volunteers. They might see a lack of youth. They may not see the importance of starting a program if they can't continue it. But instead of focusing on limitations, I love to focus on the opportunities, as most of us should, because they provide ways to move forward. And we're going to move forward this morning in the presentation by talking about the ABCs of Lads to Leaders. There are more than 50 events that all ages can participate in, but to talk about all 50 events would take up a lot more time than what I have allotted to me this morning. So we're going to bracket some of those events into categories. Some action events of Lads to Leaders. Here's one of my favorites, Keepers and Providers, because a moment ago I said this program is for all ages. This event here hones in on that. It's meant to encourage intergenerational participation, because what Keepers and Providers is all about is getting the youth of a congregation, whether they be boy or girl, into the homes, into the lives of the older members of the congregation. Keepers is for our young ladies, and Providers is for our young men, respectively. The young ladies will go to perhaps some older sisters in the congregation to learn how to make that pound cake that we all love to see at a fellowship meal, to learn how to do things around the house. But you know what's going to be happening when those young ladies are around the countertop or the table. They're going to be talking about life. They're going to be talking about marriage. They're going to be talking about family. In the same vein, Providers is for our young men. Across the nation today, we're seeing the downfall of, the downsides of not having male mentors in the lives of our young men. Providers is kind of geared towards getting our young men into the lives of our older men of the congregation to learn how to do those things around the house, do those things for your car, do those things that you might see traditionally meant for young men. Junior leader. It is an action event. It's considered an action event because it does involve a lot of work from both younger and older generations of a church. Long gone are the days where we see congregations, for some congregations I should say, where they have enough youth present in the congregation to have a first grade Bible class, second grade Bible class, third grade Bible class. We're seeing a lot of congregations now have to lump some ages into the same classroom. Some of y'all may know what that's like. And if you've been called on to be a teacher for, say, 2nd through 6th grade classroom, well, that's a really big age gap to try to accommodate for a lesson. Junior leader tries to help with that. It is for the student, it is for the teacher, because each lesson that comes in this book here is meant for the age group, the age that's present in a classroom, but they're all learning the same lesson. A lot of time, a lot of energy is put into that event there. We're very proud of it. Good Samaritan, another action event that we're proud of in Lads to Leaders. It's all about service from all of our generations present in a congregation, getting them doing good works, whether that be here on a church campus or in the community. Sower. Brother Phil Sanders, a recognized preacher in the Brotherhood, collaborated with Lads to Leaders a few years ago to create this book that both young and old can participate in. It's a how-to guide for those who perhaps don't know what evangelism looks like in their life. Getting them the tools and the practices and the skills like icebreakers, getting those core disciplines in their lives so that they can start spreading the gospel in their own life. Bulletin board, another action event. If it were up to me, a bulletin board would still have snowflakes on it in August. And a bulletin board is one of those events that encourages perhaps a classroom of the congregation, a family of the congregation, to take some pride in what adorns our walls, perhaps in the fellowship hall or our classroom hallways. Because what a visitor might see on the walls is, that's the first thing you're going to see when they come in. They look around and what's going to be on the walls for them to look at. A scrapbook, another action event that encourages an adult or a young person with a camera just to take candid photos of the moments and the events that are happening on campus here at church, printing off those photos and putting them in a scrapbook and making that scrapbook look nice. Because that scrapbook can go on a table in the foyer, and you know what's going to happen? A visitor might want to walk in, thumb through those photos to see what's going on here at the church. And 5-10 years from now, we might have members at Wildwood that wants to see what we were doing 5-10 years ago. We'll have those moments preserved in a nice scrapbook. We've talked about some action-related events from Lads to Leaders. Let's talk about some Bible events. Read the Word. Now, this event is what it sounds like. It encourages all the members of a congregation to open up their Bibles and to read. You'll notice in a few moments, there's little descriptions underneath the slides. Year-round, you might see, or individual, you might see as descriptions of some of these events. Read the Word is an event that takes place year-round, and it encourages everybody to open up the Bible. But what we'll do at the Lads to Leaders office, after the group leader here at Wildwood tells us who has participated in Read the Word event, what we'll do is we'll make kind of like an honor roll list of those who have completed the Read the Word event. And we'll recognize them for that work when they get to convention on Easter weekend. The same goes for oral Bible reading. A young man or a young lady who wants to practice reading the Word, meant for reading aloud. A young man needs to be trained in the ways of reading a Bible passage, putting pauses where they need to go, putting emphasis on words that need to be there. And young ladies, if they're invited to a prayer breakfast for young ladies or a ladies' day, they need to know those disciplines as well. Know the Books is just a category of an event that gets the books of the Bible memorized. Some of these events you'll notice later on in Bible studies are broken down into levels. Know the Books kind of is broken down into bronze, silver, and gold. If a young man or a young lady wants to memorize, say, the New Testament, well, that could be a bronze category. The Old Testament, there's a little bit more books in the Old Testament. That'll be silver. And if they want to memorize both Old and New Testament books, well, they can be recognized as a gold level for that. Centurion of Scripture. This event is about memorizing 100 passages of Scripture in a year. Now, some of us here might be saying, "Well, that's quite a task there. 100 passages of Scripture." Well, here's a little a nugget of happiness and encouragement. So far, our youngest participants in Centurion of Scripture are 2 3-year-olds, one based in Mississippi, one based in Florence, Alabama. Both of them, there was one boy, one girl, completed Centurion of Scripture at 3 years old. Now, does that mean that they sat down in front of a witness to give all 100 verses of Scripture at one time? No, that's not what happened. Over time, they memorized Bible passages, as all of us can do that. And then periodically, they recited those passages of Scripture that they memorized. And all of this work throughout the year, all the work that's put in throughout the year, will be recognized at convention. Bible Bowl. This is an event that can be individual or group, because most of us here are familiar with the thought of Bible Bowl. Even our denominational friends have a Bible Bowl. It's about getting a theme Bible book and memorizing trivia questions about that Bible book. We see, at least we have in Lads to Leaders, groups of 4 coming together as a team and working through a Bible Bowl event. And sometimes we have individuals who learn all of the trivia questions about the theme book and then answer questions about those trivia questions just by themselves. Pearls. Bible Bowl is great, and it is encouraging to see kids coming together, putting their heads to a Bible book. But in case they're invited to a trivia game, sometime in their life about that Bible book that they memorized, Bible Bowl, it kind of just stops there. Pearls is meant to provide the applicable life lessons from the Bible book that Bible Bowl is themed around, and provides lessons of wisdom lessons from that Bible book into one event. Pearls we see adapted as a 13-week study across the congregations that have the Last Leaders program. We've talked about some action events. We talked about some Bible events. We'll talk about some communication events that are in our program. Lads to Leaders started as a speech building program. In 1968, Jack Zorn, the preacher of the Warner Robins Church of Christ in Warner Robins, Georgia, was approached by his elders to help the young men who were there in building Bible talks. What prompted that? Well, one young man at the Warner Robins Church won that year in 1968 first place at his FFA speech competition. And when the elders caught wind of that, and they were so encouraged by it, they said, "Hey, would you come and give a Bible talk at church, on a Sunday night? We heard that you did so well at the FFA speech competition. Won't you make a Bible talk for us?" And he said, "Yes, absolutely, I will do that. Let me go to my ag teacher to learn how to make a Bible talk." Elders said, "Uh-oh, preacher, we need your help." So Jack Zorn said, "Let's get something going." Lads to Leaders 50 years later was the result of Jack Zorn putting in a lot of work into a program that teaches leadership skills to young people. This event can be done year-round or at convention. And debate is another one of those events that we see so important in days like today, because almost every day our young people, and us included as adults, need to provide an answer for the faith that we have. And debate is one of those events that encourages young people to think about why they believe the way they believe and articulate that reason. The debate theme this year is, let me get it right, the wording matters when it comes to debate. In the absence of significant constraints, a Christian must prioritize physical attendance in worship over virtual attendance in worship. Some of us may know family members, friends, that when COVID came around and the opportunity to stay at home was given to them, well, they took that opportunity. And some Christians haven't come back to physical buildings since COVID. So that's the debate topic for this year. A lot of teens are putting in a lot of work. Song leading, songs of praise. This is very much what it sounds like. This event teaches young men, young ladies, in the event that a young lady is invited to a ladies' day or something like that, those skills that they need to pick a song, lead that song effectively. Art says it. So we have a lot of members of the church that may not do their communicating verbally. They like to have pieces of art communicate messages for them. This bracket of events here is meant to give an opportunity for those people. They can communicate through paintings, drawing, photography, poster board, bulletin board, and the like. Mass communications. This is one of our newer categories of communication events, because sometimes a young man wants to record his speech talk or a Bible lesson into a microphone, and that microphone audio bite goes to a website. And podcasting, blogging, storylining, PowerPoint are examples of that type of communication that we have present in our program. Puppets. This is an event that you would see exemplified in a worship service on a Sunday morning, but it still is very encouraging to see a group of young people write a script for a skit, a puppet skit, deliver that to another group of puppets we see exemplified at VBSs a lot, and it's an encouraging time. This slide is outdated. That's meant to say over 3/4 of Lads to Leaders events are non-competitive. That's more than 75% of what we encourage our young people to do is not about going head-to-head with another young man or another young lady. Bartimaeus, in the same vein as the message a moment ago, song about competition. Bartimaeus is an event dedicated to those who are special needs or mentally handicapped, because we have those members in our body, and they want an opportunity, just like anyone else, to put into practice leadership skills. A touching story about our Bartimaeus participant in the convention year of 2022, a young man in mind, physically I think he's 37 or 38, a young man in mind came to convention and was recognized for leading a song, and he was given a medal around his neck. We hear stories 3 years later, as we're approaching 2025, he still has that medal on. at church, he is wearing that medal. And we see encouraging stories like that all the time. A moment ago I said some events are individual events, some are group. Puppets, debate, Bible Bowl, these are examples of team events. But we've got scores of individuals that just want to do things here at church and in our community. And we have so many opportunities here at home. We're hearing now there are some smaller congregations in communities that don't have youth groups, but those congregations that do, and those congregations that are using Lads to Leaders in their regular lineup of a curriculum and such, are getting invited. Congregations that have the Lads to Leaders program are going to neighboring congregations and leading services and such like. At convention, we recognize the hard work that is put in throughout the year. There are so many more events that I could talk about that we have in our program. But here's something that I do want to talk about. Jack Zorn, right here in that red coat, the founder of Lads to Leaders, the program. Say a young person wants to do every single event in the Lads to Leaders program, and they complete the requirements for every event. That student is recognized with a red coat in honor of Jack Zorn. But I want to take a moment to say here, regardless of if a student does every single event in the program, there are universities like Freed-Hardeman, Faulkner, Harding that see the hard work that a student does in the Lads to Leaders program and grants them scholarships for doing the hard work in the Lads to Leaders program. So people will submit into us a request for a scholarship, and sometimes those universities will answer that request. That's an encouraging thing. So a congregation wants to start Lads to Leaders, and they've got some young people that are interested in doing some of the things I've talked about. Well, they select a couple action events, they select a couple Bible events, there we go, and they select a couple of communication events, and they're on their way to getting a very nice sampling of all the things we've got available in the program. Let's say we've got some adults in the church that want to contribute to the Lads to Leaders program, but they may not know how to teach building a speech or building a debate. Well, at the Lads to Leaders site and at our headquarters in Montgomery, we keep books that are meant to satisfy that. We've got books on how to build a speech. We've got books on how to become a leader. Back in 2018, I graduated from Freed-Hardeman. I knew that I was headed to a church that had a lot of young people that wanted to lead. So I picked up a personal copy for myself the Field Book of Leadership. It's a brilliant how-to guide on what leadership skills look like in the church. Teach Me to Pray is one of those books that's not really an event as much as it is, it's meant to encourage good practice throughout the year. It's a prayer journal. Our three authors, Phil Sanders, Greg Tidwell, and Matt Guy, came together and said that, well, we've got a lot of young people that, well, they're starting to journal their prayers. What if Lads to Leaders built a little book that had notes at the front of each lesson that communicates the effectiveness of prayer, the benefits of prayer, and opportunities to record those prayers. And that's one of the most popular books we have in our store right now. This is one of our newest one, Wilderness Challenge. Have y'all heard of Boy Scouts? Well, Boy Scouts has adopted an ideology that not many of us want to support. In fact, none of us would want to support the ideology they're now fully embracing. So Lads to Leaders said, what if we came up with a Boy Scouts type event for those members of the church that are more inclined to do things outside in God's creation? And so we have the Wilderness Challenge as an event. Let's see. Oops. Back. I'll just use this slide. We have on our website training videos. In the event that someone can't secure a physical copy of training, how-to books, we've got so many YouTube videos on our website for group leaders and church leaders that want to know how to do those things. I think that's what I'm doing. I'm clicking too fast. When a church wants to start Lads to Leaders, one of the first things they got to download is the rules book. It's the standards for every event that we've got in our program. We are present on social media. We invite everybody to follow us there because we notify our participants of things happening in the program. When a church selects a group leader, that group leader needs volunteers. Now, we see a lot of times people are willing to help, but when they lack a specific task and they desire a specific training and coaching, sometimes the willingness to volunteer fizzles out. But when a volunteer has a specific task that they're given, and they are given that specific training, they're more likely to step up and do the job. When all of the hard work is done and is put in throughout the year, kids come to convention. Thousands of kids and families following the nuclear model, the traditional family that God created, father, mother, children, are coming to convention and getting recognized for the hard work. We believe what gets rewarded gets repeated at Lads to Leaders. So we're seeing smiles all of the time at convention on Easter weekend. This is one of our Bartimaeus participants getting recognized by one of the Jenkins brothers. And then when the Lads to Leaders program is wrapped up on Saturday night, young people go back to their rooms. They get a good night's rest. Sunday morning, there at the hotel where convention is hosted, there is a traditional first century worship service. No frills, no thrills, no fog lights, machines, and the like. We have our young men, some of our older participants leading the song leading. The young men who built speeches that year will lead the sermon period of a worship service. We've got our young men reading our Bible passages and our young men leading our prayers. It is one of the most encouraging things to see. Young people wanting to get up and lead on behalf of the church. When a family comes to convention, safety is our top priority. We don't live in a world that takes too kindly to Christians. And when we invite thousands of Christian families to one place, we want everyone to feel that they are safe. And wristbands are what we require everyone to wear so that we can identify who is present in that convention center. God meant it for good is our theme for this year. And convention is Easter weekend of 2025. We also have convention sites in some of our Western churches, like the Colorado, North Las Vegas, Oklahoma, I consider West. But we also have convention sites blossoming in areas that aren't the Bible Belt, like the Mid-Atlantic Convention site. We encourage anyone and everyone, if they've got questions, if they've got concerns, to approach us, because we want to talk about it and get those things resolved. Lads to Leaders, it is one of the more boring things, as you can tell in this photo. It is so boring when a kid gets recognized for the work they do throughout the year. I'm kidding, of course. It's one of the most exciting things that a kid can see throughout the year. We are global. We've got conventions popping up in India and Romania and the Philippines. And there was one more, South Korea. We've got a Lads Leaders Convention in South Korea. But when a congregation sees the benefit of teaching their young people leadership skills, that doesn't just benefit the congregation. Those young people will grow up to use those leadership skills in their life, regardless of if they choose ministry. The record shows about 85% return rate. Those kids that go through the Lads Leaders program, 85% stay with the church. Benefits are for all ages. So that is my presentation. And if anyone's got any questions or if they'd like to come up here and look through some of the material that I have, I encourage you to do so. I think we've got, it is 10:03. We've got, how much time left? Before what is it? 10 minutes. So if in the next 10 minutes you wanted to come up and peruse some of the material, you are more than welcome to do so. Thank you for having me this morning. I look forward to talking with each of you. So that's my presentation.
Thank you.